Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the top 5 builds in Baldur's Gate 3's patch 8, and a little caveat, I'm going to be using at least one of the new subclasses in each of these builds, and they're all going to be multi-class builds, showcasing how you can make them as strong as possible. Now first things first, the Hexblade Warlock. I have to talk about it, it's extremely good. Now, one of the most popular and most powerful builds in Baldur's Gate 3 is a multi-class of the Paladin with the Warlock. Now, this gets even stronger when we get into patch 8 because the Hexblade is actually one of the best because we don't have to take 5 levels of Hexblade, making this great for honor mode and regular mode. So there's actually 2 builds here, depending on whether or not you're going to be playing on honor mode. Because in honor mode, extra attacks from the Warlock do not stack with the extra attack that you get from your martial classes like the Paladin. So outside of honor mode, the best split would probably be 6-6. So 6 levels of Paladin, 6 levels of Warlock. And in honor mode, I'll be showing you that build because it's a little bit different because we're going to go with 11 levels of Paladin and a single level of the Hexblade. The reason being is at level 11 of the Paladin, you get improved Divine Smite, which adds a 1d8 of radiant damage to every single attack that you do. Where this becomes crazy is we can actually stack up radiating orbs very quickly with a build like this, and we can go all in on our charisma. The regular way of doing a Hexblade Warlock with the Paladin would be, 6 levels, take your Warlock up to level 5 first, then 5 more levels of Paladin, and then you can finish off with 1 level each. But I want to show off this build because I think that this one offers something unique and different. Starting off with the Hexblade's nice, or respecking once you hit level 5, because this gives us our Bind Hex weapon, which gives us a 20% chance of applying the Hexblade's curse, giving it a bonus damage equal to our proficiency bonus, so like 4 extra damage at higher levels, and you get an increased critical hit chance by 5%. And that's pretty nice. If we go up higher at level 6, we get the ability to create an Accursed Spectre, so making the 6-6 split very nice. However, in honor mode, you don't get that stacking attack, so it's not as purposeful to do it that way. What makes the Hexblade absolutely nuts when it comes to the Paladin is you get Booming Blade once per action. So if you go ahead with your attack, you can do a Booming Blade and Divine Smite. If you got haste, a Booming Blade and Divine Smite after that. That's a lot of damage because this Booming Blade adds a 2d8 of thunder damage, and when the target moves, it gets 3d8 of thunder damage. So very high burst potential here, and obviously Eldritch Blast is really nice. We also get access to the shield spell this way, which is really nice because you can use your Paladin spell slots and level 1 spell slots to burn through these, increasing your armor class by 5, making it absolutely much better of a tank. And what's nice about the new Crown Paladin is it adds in a lot of new stuff. We'll just take the Hexblade here and multi-class in. Now, it is very tempting to go ahead and get our Devil Sight here to be able to see a magical darkness, but I think that the best way to do this is actually adding in the Paladin at this point, and just for fun, we'll do the Crown Paladin because this makes it more tanky, although I do prefer the Vengeance Paladin. This gives us proficiency bonus to attack rolls as a bonus action to one target. This is great if you have a Great Weapon Master fighter because it's going to give a nice +4 to their weapon attacks, offsetting that Great Weapon Master -5 to attack rolls. Level 2 of Paladin gives us Divine Smite, enough said. Level 3 is when the Crown Paladin adds quite a bit here. We get the Champion Challenge, which can basically goad every enemy in a 9-meter radius, which is large, into attacking you, and they'll have disadvantage on attacks against other targets. And we also get the Turn the Tide, which will shout out and heal all allies, which is kind of nice as well, and we get our Channel Oath spells here. Now, one really nice thing about the Crown Paladin, when you get to level 9, you get Spirit Guardians. So this build really comes alive once we get to level 5 or 6 because that extra attack, and then having charisma for our attack rolls. We got an 18 charisma if we win. And I guess the spec we should do is boosting up our charisma with our 2 ability score improvements, 16 dex or 16 strength depending on whatever you want to use for armor, and then constitution. Now, another nice thing is we get the spiritual weapon, so that gives us a bonus action ability to set up Daze on targets if we select the Maul. The Maul is very useful because Daze gives us the target disadvantage on wisdom saves, meaning that command and hold person will land a lot more freely. They also fixed the tooltip here, so it shows that proper +4 bonus to saving throws from your charisma modifier, which is nice. So again, another reason to go all in on charisma. And then subclass feature Divine Allegiance, so we can protect our teammates taking damage instead of them, which makes us nice as a support tank. But again, if we want to go full burst Nova damage, it'd be 6-6 outside of honor mode. But in honor mode, we can actually do quite a bit with this. Because once we get to level 9, Spirit to Guardians, 3 to 24 radiant damage on targets. And this allows us to stack radiating orbs like no other build in the game. Because once we get to level 11, improved Divine Smite, So I just want to clarify something because I get a lot of comments actually surrounding this. This applies to every melee attack. It's not actually giving a 1d8 on your divine smites. It just makes every weapon attack deal that additional radiant damage, meaning that we can just do melee attacks and stack radiating orbs. We can do booming blade and stack radiating orbs because all of that is going to have that, you see there, 1d8 radiant damage. So that becomes very powerful quickly. Even if we have an offhand weapon like a torch here, we can attack with it and deal additional radiant damage. So the best gear in slot for this would actually be, so with something like this, luminous armor will give us radiant shockwaves whenever we do radiant damage, stacking radiating orbs. We got luminous gloves. Whenever we do radiant damage, they get 2 turns of radiating orb. Boots of stormy clamor will give 2 turns of reverberation, so we can even further stack that. And I also really like the Holy Lance Helm because whenever a target misses an attack roll, which they're likely to because of it, so basically radiating orbs give -2 attack rolls and it can stack up to -10, meaning if someone rolls, let's say they roll a 15, it becomes a 5 and they're not hitting you with that. So this will actually do radiant damage if a target misses, and they'll further stack our radiating orbs. And then also with the coruscation ring, whenever we do spell damage, we inflict radiating orbs on for 2 turns. So you can actually do quite a bit of radiating orbs against targets with this. So we got 6 stacks from a single Eldritch Blast action. So that's one way of doing it. We can just do main hand damage. We don't even have to attack with a divine smite, and we can stack radiating orbs there. So that's pretty big. And then we can also protect ourselves there. So yeah, divine allegiance, kind of cool ability. But whenever we're doing our attacks, every melee attack stacks radiating orbs. Every spell stacks radiating orbs. Our booming blade, and then if we go crazy with a divine smite, this will further stack our radiating orbs on the target. Which is just absolutely incredible. So yeah, you got 6 stacks of them there now. What makes this build very powerful is we're a defender. So not only do we have pretty good Nova damage, we also got spiritual guardians, which will stack our radiating orbs. We got all different sorts of smites. We got our spiritual weapon. We got heals with Turn the Tide, which heals in a very large area. Or we can grab aggro with the Champion's Challenge. You can see there, if there's any enemy in this radius, they get disadvantage on every attack roll against other targets other than you. So they're much more likely to attack you. But having that channel oath there is quite nice. For short rest, you can only do it 1 time, but it's going to be more than enough to be able to help out, because you can see there a nice 20 or so healing on that. Makes it pretty effective. So again, if we wanted to go full in on our damage, we would go outside of honor mode. We do 5 levels or 6 levels each, giving us 3 attacks, and that becomes quite powerful. But I think that this one is quite powerful enough because, yeah, you get all that extra radiant damage. Be mindful, there's a few places in the game where radiant damage will be reflected, so you definitely want to swap off for that, or use like the necrotic version and just not do melee attacks. But yeah, it's extremely powerful for stacking radiating orbs. And there's actually another build that I'll be showing off that's really good with radiating orbs as well, so you get to pick from them. But the next class I want to cover is the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. I've been told this is not a very good subclass. Now, I want to disagree with that because it is actually very powerful if we set up correctly. The big thing with Shadow Magic Sorcerer, you want to use shadows, aka darkness. So we get the Eyes of the Darkness once we hit level 3, and this is where the true power of this class comes from. If you don't like using darkness, maybe this isn't the best subclass for you. The Draconic Bloodline is plenty strong, so you can go with that. Even Storm Sorcery, very overpowered. But with Shadow Magic, you get the Strength of the Grave, so you can come back up if you get down to 0 health points. You also get Dark Vision, but we don't actually get to see a magical darkness, where I'll show you how to correct that. This class is always going to be best built around our charisma, and then putting some of our points into the rest of like dexterity and constitution. Something like that can work well. Another spell that's absolutely powerful here is Chromatic Orb, because when we have our Hound of Ill Omen, it can apply an omen on a target, and Chromatic Orb will cover the most damage types so that we can get our sorcery points back from it. So that's really nice. Meta Magic's always very powerful with Twin and Distance spell, but the true strength of this comes from level 3, Eyes of the Darkness. This uses 2 sorcery points. The regular old darkness version actually doesn't give you dark vision, so be mindful of that. With this, we get the ability to just hide out our darkness. Now, targets can't make normal melee attacks or ranged attacks into darkness. They have to do throwing attacks, and most classes are not spec'd out to do throwing damage very well, making you pretty defensive too. Now, not as defensive as the Draconic getting just built-in armor class up to 13, but hey, this is fine because we can just camp out in our darkness, and if you got a Hexblade Warlock, they can hide out in it too. And there's also 3 pieces of gear in the game that let you hide out in here with the True Sight Ring, Charter Spear of the Evening, and the Steel Watcher Helmet. So we got lots of options to camp out in darkness if you so please. And Quicken Spell always going to be very powerful because you can do a spell and a bonus action spell. It also gets access to Shadow Blade. I did do a build guide of the Shadow Sorcerer, 6 levels of that with the Blade Singing Wizard, because the Blade Singing Wizard gets the extra attack to utilize his Shadow Blade. And what's cool about that is the wizard will also let you scribe scrolls, so you can learn level 6 spells, even though you have 6 levels in each class. And once we hit level 6, we get our Hound of Ill Omen, which I'll show off. It's really good because every time it gets hit, it can splinter off into another dog, as long as the melee attack didn't have radiant damage. And then the extra dogs can split off into more dogs, so you can literally have like 10 dogs out in the battlefield at once. And both feats should be used to increase your charisma all the way to max for better spell casting. And level 11 gives us another very powerful ability with Shadow Walk. Now what this does, you can teleport to the shadows and you get distance spells, so you increases the spell's range by 50%, and that becomes really wild. Now there's actually cool multi-class we could do. Now typically I like to just go 12 levels of this. However, we could add in a single level of the wizard. The reason being, the wizard can scribe spells from scrolls. So we can learn spells that don't require a save DC, like if we were using something like Globe of Invulnerability, level 6 spell, one of the most broken spells in the game. You can learn that, no big deal. Also, we could grab minor and major elementals, so you got 2 summons. Yeah, there's a lot of cool combinations you can do with the wizard if you wanted to add that in just for extra utility, or we can just go all the way to level 12. Why I think this is so strong? Well, we got our Shadow Step or Shadow Walk here, so we can use this to teleport around, and then it gives us distance spell. So if we were to go and do our spells with higher level spell slots, you can see that our range becomes incredible. So we can hit from downtown here. Literally, the distance spell is crazy. What's cool about it too is this Shadow Walk is a bonus action, doesn't use your spell slots, and it's very useful with where you can teleport to. Like you can see most places in here, this is just camp, is lightly obscured, and if you go and see any shadows outside, you likely can teleport there. Now the big thing is I love the Hound of Ill Omen. Now it's not going to be super strong and it doesn't hit its attacks often. It's a good as boy. It can splinter off into more dogs. It has the Umbral Tangle, and I find that the splintered dogs like to use this often to break concentrations on any spellcasters, and it traps targets in their place. It actually hits in a decent area of effect. It also has that Ominous Bite here, which you can apply omens on targets, and you can cast your spells to get back the spell slots you used on it. So it's a really good boy, and yeah, it's just nice to have a little summon alongside you. Obviously, the biggest things being our Eyes of the Dark, and then also our teleportation, because you can set up Eyes of the Dark, run over, spell cast, or run somewheres, Shadow Walk back to your darkness, and then cast from it in an increased range, making it actually pretty crazy. So I'm a huge fan of this. I think it's very powerful, and it's a misunderstood class. Darkness is very powerful in this game. The Blade Singing Wizard is a very powerful new subclass in patch 8 because it gives the wizard 2 attacks once it hits level 6. It has the great spell list that the wizard has, and on top of that you go into Blade Song, which gives a bonus to your armor class, and it lets you use some of the more powerful weapons in this game even more powerfully. So I'll be showcasing a cool multi-class. You don't have to go all the way with the wizard, and you can still get your full spell list from this. It also has access to Booming Blade. Again, Booming Blade is just crazy strong. And when we hit the Blade Singing Wizard here, we get that Blade Song giving a proficiency bonus equal to your armor class and constitution saving throws, and you also get advantage in acrobatics and increased movement speed by 3 meters, so pretty nice benefits. You also get training proficiency with daggers, sickles, short swords, rapiers, scimitars, and long swords, and light armor. So this is a great recipient for light armor as well as the weapon, the Duelist Prerogative. And it also gets access to Shadow Blade, which again, very, very strong, does 2d8 psychic damage. And then if you upscale it or upcast at level 5, it does a 4d8. And if you get the Resonance Stone, that doubles the damage. So you'll be one-shotting everybody. As mentioned, level 6 gives us that extra attack. And once we hit level 10, you get the Song of Defense. So if you get hit with an attack, you can use 5 times the spell slot level to reduce the damage by that. So if you use a level 4 spell, that's minus 20 damage. Kind of nice. Now once we hit level 11, this is when we get level 6 spells. However, the ones that we want, like Chain Lightning, Odal's Freezing Sphere, Wall of Ice, we can get from scrolls, and instead we can actually add in the Paladin. Now, the reason being is if we add 2 levels of the Paladin, this doesn't change our total amount of spell slots. So we still get level 6 spells this way. You get Divine Smite, and this can also be stacked up with your other abilities. So if you use Shadow Blade, it becomes a nice boost. And the thing with the Divine Smite is we can upcast it all the way to level 4 and get extra damage from it. So you can see there it can go upwards of the 5d8 radiant damage. So that becomes pretty useful. On top of that, we can also use Shadow Blade. I posted a build guide for this yesterday. This subclass combination is crazy because you still get to scribe your spell scrolls. You get to learn things that are level 6 spells, because we still got our level 6 spell slot there. So with this, you can take Chain Lightning, Orluk's Freezing Spear, you name it. And if you got the Illithid ability free cast, that's another ability to cast it. Or you could even use a staff if you wanted to and bonk people over the head with a staff using your Divine Smite. It's entirely up to you, but with this combination, we got Blade Singing, so we get that big bonus to our armor class. And then on top of that, you can even use an offhand weapon too, but we also can get a huge benefit out of using the Duelist Prerogative, which gives us an extra reaction. So if we have counterspell, we can counterspell 2 people per turn, which is actually pretty crazy. You also can just use Shadow Blade because that becomes very strong too. But yeah, this is a very powerful combination. The Blade Singing Wizard, even on its own, is really good because it gets a lot of spell casting, but it gets that extra attack, which means we're going to be quite strong with something like a Psychic, the Shadow Blade there, and then using Booming Blade for that extra damage, and then Divine Smite. You can do Booming Blade, Divine Smite. If you have haste, do that again. It becomes pretty crazy. So yeah, this is definitely one of the strongest builds in Baldur's Gate 3 now, just because you take all the benefits of a wizard, you add martial class to them, and you get Divine Smite. Now, the next subclass we'll be focusing on is the Circle of Stars Druid, which is a pretty powerful class, but if we multi-class it, it can become even stronger by multi-classing with the Light Cleric, because they're both radiant damage casters. Now, the best way to go about doing this is to put most of our points into not only just dexterity, constitution, and wisdom, something like this. And once we get level 2, this is when we get our starry form. So we got a few different things here. So we get our dragon form, which has dazzling breath. We got our archer form, which gives luminous arrow. And we got chalice, which if we do a healing spell, then we can get ourselves another bonus action heal with the chalice healing. Now this is crazy because the dragon's breath is actually kind of strong and it hits in a huge area of effect. So we can, this is another one that's really good at stacking radiating orbs. We also get free guiding bolt using the star map here, which is a unique resource that we get to cast that free guiding bolt. Now I recommend only going up to level 3 here. This gives us like spike growth and some fun spells like Hold Person and Moonbeam. We can do the classic Moonbeam Sanctuary combination. It's possible on here. Now the thing with this is we're going to just take 3 levels of the Druid, and then we're going to add in the Light Cleric, because at level 9 Light Cleric they get Destructive Wave, which is a very powerful spell that actually complements this extremely well. So with the Light Domain, this also gives us like the Burning Hands, it gives us a Fairy Fire, but it gives us Warding Flare, so we can use shield to impose disadvantage on attack. So if someone's going to critically hit us, we can actually make that attack miss. We also get the Radiance of the Dawn action, which is 2d10 plus 4 radiant damage and dispels magical darkness. And the Light Domain Cleric gets some very powerful spells. Like Scorching Ray can set up radiating orbs like crazy, as can Fireball. And once we hit level 6, we get Improved Warding Flare, which can protect our allies and impose disadvantage on attack rolls, causing attacks to miss as well. And we also get Wall of Fire, but our concentration is best used on Spirit Guardians. Now, the reason we want to take this is Flame Strike and Destructive Wrath both do an additional 5d6 of radiant damage, so we can stack radiating orbs in a massive area of effect with these spells, and it actually is quite powerful. So what we want to do with this class is we want to have our Spirit Guardians up. The armor is going to be roughly the same as the other one, so you have to pick one or the other when it comes to these. So with the Luminous Armor, we'd stack radiating orbs. Basically, yeah, same gear, Luminous Gloves, Boots of Stormy Clamor, and the Coruscation Ring here. Because whenever we do some of our attacks, like we got Spirit Guardians, it's not going to affect our teammates, but that's stacked radiating orbs there. And then things like our Scorching Ray will stack radiating orbs very well. So let's just show you what that looks like. Boom, only one of those hit because we had disadvantage, but 2 for every single one of those that does end up landing on the target. So boom, you can see we got radiating orbs built up, and Spirit Guardians would further enhance that. We got our star map as well. All that's fine and dandy, but our wild shape starry form dragon or the archer, if someone's a little bit further away from you, works best, because then as a bonus action, this only does 2d6 plus 5 radiant damage. But you can see there, we can further stack radiating orbs against enemies just by using a bonus action. So with Spirit Guardians up, we can run up, apply 2 stacks radiating orbs, then we can do a spell, stack further radiating orbs, and especially some of our more destructive spells, like if we use our Destructive Wave here, this can hit in a very large area of effect, and especially if we use the radiant version of it here, you can see it's a massive area of effect. Or we can just go with the classic Flame Strike, which also has a large area of effect, and that radiant damage is nice because then that's going to further stack radiating orbs. You get 6 stacks right now in Gale. Then we got a Radiance of the Dawn, which also hits in a large area of effect, deals a ton of damage. And then on top of that, we got even cantrips that can do it. But yeah, we stack radiating orbs like crazy, and then have Dazzling Breath there to do a bonus action. So this is going to be some of the fastest you can stack up radiating orbs. Combined with going with that level 11 Paladin with the 1 level of Warlock, it's quite strong. So yeah, this one is pretty fun. Now the final class I want to cover here is the Giant Barbarian, and we can actually multi-class this to make it a little bit better. It's pretty strong on its own though, because it lets you throw any weapon in the game that you want, and barbarians in general just strong because they can be kind of tanky, just taking half damage in their rage. With an ability score somewhat like this or this, depending if you want to use a strength or dexterity based weapon. I just want to make a note here, the Berserker Barbarian is probably the best thrower, because you can add at level, once you get level 9 Berserker, you can add in 3 levels of the Rogue Thief and get that extra bonus action for your bonus action throws. However, the Giant Barbarian is also quite good too, because we get a double bonus on our throw damage, and then we also get the Elemental Cleaver. At level 5, it does get quite a nice movement, or a nice boost here with increased attacks and the Boot of the Giants, letting you do a bonus action kick and potentially knock targets off of ledges and take them in one shot. And at level 6, this is the Elemental Cleaver, which gives the thrown property to any weapon in the game. This is the only way you can add thrown to like the Baldur and Giant Slayer, for example. It also adds additional cold, acid, fire, lightning, or thunder damage to the weapon. What's nice about that is adding cold damage to a weapon means that you can use the snowburst ring and create snow patches or ice patches below the enemy, and they can slip and fall, upsetting their concentrations. It actually is very, very strong. And at level 10, we get Mighty Impel. This is basically a suplex attack, and we can throw creatures around using it. It's a lot of fun. Now we could continue with this, but I think the best way to do this is actually go add in the fighter, and then you can add like dueling if you use a single weapon or great weapon fighting. Getting another fighting style is always nice. And the thing is, action surge, extra action. I mean, it makes sense. That's one of the best multi-classes for the Giant Barbarian, just because level 10 you get that Mighty Impel, which is just perfect. You have to be enraged to be able to use that, but even the Boot of the Giants is quite nice. You get a pretty long range on it. So the thing is, whenever we attack, we have to get into combat first to be able to use the abilities here. But whenever we go into this, we can always go with our rage here if you didn't use your bonus action. So when we go into our rage, we're going to increase in size here, which is cool. And then on top of that, we can go with the Elemental Cleaver and add an elemental damage type to our weapon. So we can go ahead there. I'm not using the ring at the moment, but then we can go ahead with throwing our weapon. And what that gives us is a pretty nice time, because whenever we go to throw, we can throw this weapon here, and it's actually going to do its normal amounts of damage. So for some reason the path is blocked. So yeah, so we can do a couple things. We can do the Mighty Impel here, which we can throw anything in our inventory, or we can just throw, you know, Volo. So this animation looks hilarious. You literally do a suplex. It was enough to one-shot him. But then you also have your throwing attacks. So we can go ahead with throwing our weapons here. And what's nice about this is it lets you do actual damage with the weapon. For some reason, that happened. Cutting words stopped it. We'll try that again. So yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there, why it's not happening, but normally you can just throw your weapon as per usual. Getting that bonus action throw as well, you can throw people off of ledges, making the Giant Barbarian extremely powerful. So yeah, that is the top 5 most strong patch 8 subclass multi-classes, I guess, in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.